Why is it that when someone dares to say what no one else will, or thinks in ways others can't understand, the crowd turns on them? What is it about a truly independent mind that provokes hatred, fear, and obsession? Could it be that such a mind exposes the weaknesses the masses work so hard to deny? That it forces people to confront the illusions they've built their lives upon? There's a reason the world quietly conspires against those who refuse to fall in line. Not with open threats or obvious chains, but with subtle rules and carefully scripted lies. Most people don't realize it, but society isn't built to handle people who think for themselves. It's built to tame them, to isolate them, to either break them or bury them under labels like crazy, dangerous, problematic. The average person finds comfort in predictability. They need to believe the rules they follow are universal, that their limitations are shared, and that no one dares question the boundaries set for them. But every so often, someone appears who refuses to play by those rules. Someone whose mind isn't shackled by tradition, public opinion, or the fear of being alone. And that terrifies people. Why? Friedrich Nietzsche dedicated his life to dissecting this very phenomenon. He wasn't concerned with pleasing anyone. He believed most people lived as willing slaves, to comfort, to approval, to empty customs. And that the greatest threat to any system wasn't a violent rebel, but a thinker, a person whose mind could not be bought, broken, or controlled. Nietzsche called for a new kind of person, one who could rise above herd morality, embrace their most primal instincts, and forge their own meaning in a meaningless world. But what would it actually take to become that person today? In a culture obsessed with distraction, fake virtue, and artificial strength, how do you build a mind so terrifyingly unbreakable that the world instinctively fears you? This isn't about being clever. It's about having the courage to confront the truths most people spend their entire lives running from. In every corner of modern life, strength is paraded as a commodity. You see it in the curated confidence of social media influencers, in the loud proclamations of political figures, and in the hollow affirmations that saturate your daily feed. Be bold, they say. Be yourself. But the irony is, most people's idea of strength is nothing more than obedience wearing a different mask. Society has mastered the art of selling illusions. It teaches you that strength is about being liked, about fitting in, about saying the right things at the right time. The masses are conditioned to mistake compliance for character and applause for authority. A person who bends to popular trends is seen as relevant. A person who questions them is labeled difficult, dangerous, even insane. But if you think that's intense, wait until we explore what Nietzsche called the will to power. This isn't just about being strong, it's about becoming untouchable. In the next part, we'll dive into how your mind can dominate without ever raising your voice, and why most people are terrified of that kind of silent control. Keep watching. The real transformation starts now. Nietzsche saw through this centuries ago. He warned that most people are slaves, not because they're shackled by physical chains, but because they cling to invisible ones. The need for approval, the terror of standing alone, and the addiction to shallow validation. He called it herd morality, a system designed to reward the obedient and punish the independent. In today's world, this mechanism is even more insidious. Look at the endless stream of motivational quotes plastered across your screen. At first glance, they preach empowerment, but read them closely and you'll notice a pattern. They rarely encourage defiance, critical thinking, or genuine self-reliance. Instead, they promote conformity disguised as positivity. Ignore negativity, surround yourself with like-minded people, trust the process. But whose process? Who defines what's negative and who benefits from your selective ignorance? Even the influencers hailed as rebels often serve as mirrors for the system they pretend to reject. Their strength is performative, measured in followers and brand deals. They challenge safe topics but avoid any real confrontation with the structures that sustain their success. It's a delicate balance. Act rebellious enough to appear bold, but never so bold you risk being silenced. And politics is no different. Leaders rise, movements trend, but the core remains unchanged. Power never truly leaves the hands of those who understand that a population obsessed with image, status, and petty conflict is far easier to control than one united by uncomfortable truths. The greatest tool of manipulation is distraction. Keep people chasing symbols of strength, blue check marks, viral posts, hollow awards, and they'll never realize how powerless they truly are. They'll police each other, fight over words, and seek validation from systems built to exploit them. This is why in every era, those who possess genuine strength are hated or feared, because real strength refuses to conform. It doesn't beg for acceptance. It exists outside the fragile approval of the masses. It cannot be bought, threatened, or flattered. And in a world built on illusions, the person who sees too clearly, who lives by their own law, becomes the most dangerous threat of all. And that is precisely where true power begins. There's something deeply unsettling about a person who can't be controlled. Not because they're violent or reckless, but because they exist outside the invisible rules everyone else silently agrees to follow. It unnerves people in ways they don't even understand. A tension in the air, a sense of danger, as if the very presence of such a person exposes an uncomfortable truth most would rather ignore. Human beings are wired for tribalism. For most of history, survival depended on belonging to a group. Those who strayed too far from the herd were considered a threat, not just to themselves, but to the fragile stability of the tribe. This ancient instinct still lives inside us. It's why societies build unspoken rules about how you're supposed to behave, what you can say, and which opinions are safe to hold. Break those rules and watch how quickly the mood changes. But here's the deeper, darker truth. People don't just fear outliers because they're different. They fear them because unpredictable minds trigger a primal anxiety, the terror of uncertainty. In a world where most people build their identities through borrowed beliefs and external approval, someone who refuses to play along forces others to confront how little of their own lives they actually control. History remembers these figures not because they fit in, but because they refuse to. Socrates was sentenced to death for corrupting the youth of Athens. His crime? Asking questions that made people uncomfortable. Nietzsche was labeled insane for challenging morality and religious dogma. Malcolm X was vilified for refusing to soften his message to make the powerful comfortable. Edward Snowden became an international fugitive for revealing truths that governments would rather keep buried. These individuals weren't hated because they were wrong. They were hated because they were right, and because they couldn't be bought, silenced, or swayed by the threat of exile. And now look around you. Have you ever noticed how people panic when you stop seeking their approval? When you say something they didn't expect? When you choose silence over validation? The subtle looks, the sudden distance, the quiet attempts to pull you back into line. It's not about you, it's about what you represent. A person untethered from collective illusion threatens the very foundation of those still trapped inside it. A strong mind reveals the weakness of others, not through arrogance, but by existing on terms they're too afraid to claim for themselves. It challenges the unspoken pact that will all pretend not to notice the absurdity of our beliefs, the cowardice in our compromises, the comfort we trade for chains. So if your mind terrifies people, if your presence makes them uneasy, good. It means you've escaped their control. It means you've begun to exist, not as a reflection of others, but as something real, untouchable, and dangerously free. What does it take to build a mind so unbreakable, so untamed, that it terrifies those around it? Not a mind stuffed with facts, not a mind trained to win arguments or recite clever quotes, but a mind that stands alone, ruthless, self-created, immune to manipulation, and fearless in the face of isolation. Friedrich Nietzsche didn't just speculate about this kind of mind, he designed it. At the heart of Nietzsche's philosophy lies a single defiant concept, the will to power. Not power in the shallow sense of controlling others, but the inner compulsion to shape your own life, your own identity, your own values, even if it means dismantling everything you were taught to believe. The will to power is the drive to transcend limitations, to refuse the comfortable narrative handed to you, and to decide for yourself what your existence will mean. But this doesn't happen through comfort. It happens in confrontation, with others, with society, and most painfully, with yourself. Nietzsche believed that most people never truly become themselves. Instead, they inherit a personality from their culture, their family, their era. They live as secondhand echoes, mimicking opinions and chasing goals they never chose. He called these people last men, creatures obsessed with safety, ease, and shallow pleasures. People terrified of anything that threatens their illusions. To build a superior mind, Nietzsche argued, one must reject this herd morality. And that begins with embracing solitude, not loneliness, but intentional isolation from the constant noise of public opinion. In solitude, you begin to hear your own thoughts without interference. You realize how much of what you believed was never truly yours. Then comes the hardest part, confronting uncomfortable truths about yourself, about the people you love, about the systems you trusted. Nietzsche wrote that a person must be both a creator and a destroyer, willing to tear down beliefs, attachments, and identities when they no longer serve growth. It means admitting when you were wrong. It means abandoning ideas you once held sacred. It means breaking your own heart when necessary. In today's world, this isn't theoretical, it's practical. It means cutting off people who drain your strength, no matter how long you've known them. It means refusing to conform to trends you find hollow, even if it makes you an outsider. It means pursuing difficult, often painful truths in a culture obsessed with curated realities and easy narratives. Nietzsche insisted that true strength comes from refusing victimhood. The modern world thrives on grievance culture, teaching people to define themselves by what hurt them, what offended them, what oppressed them. But Nietzsche saw this as the death of personal power. He believed that no matter what wounds you've endured, you have a duty to rise, to will meaning into your suffering, and to reshape yourself through it. And above all, it means creating your own values, not adopting the empty slogans of a political party, a religious doctrine, or a social movement, but crafting a personal code born from your direct experience with the world. What do you consider sacred? What are you willing to destroy for your own evolution? What is your life for? These are the questions a superior mind asks, not once but every day, and it never stops. Nietzsche's terrifying truth is that a ruthless mind is never finished. It's always becoming, always shedding old skins, always prepared to stand alone against the world. It dares to confront the darkness in itself without excuses. It rejects the comfort of certainty. It builds itself out of fire, because in the end, the strongest minds aren't those that win arguments or earn applause. They're the ones who can look at everything they've been told, everything they've ever believed, and choose to burn it all down in order to become something greater. A world built on illusion cannot afford too many people who see clearly. And so, from the moment you're born, the systems around you work tirelessly to shape your mind. Not to free it, but to tame it. It starts in the classroom. Education systems aren't designed to create thinkers. They're designed to produce obedient workers, predictable citizens, and passive consumers. Children are rewarded not for curiosity, but for compliance. Not for original thought, but for memorizing and repeating what authority figures declare to be true. Those who ask uncomfortable questions are labeled disruptive. Those who challenge the structure are swiftly corrected. And those who refuse to conform are pathologized, branded with disorders and medicated into submission. As you grow, the leash tightens. The media steps in to frame the boundaries of acceptable thought. It decides which conversations are permitted, which emotions are appropriate, and which narratives you should trust without question. The illusion of free choice is carefully maintained, but the menu you're allowed to choose from is painfully narrow. Disagreement isn't debated, it's mocked. Dissenters aren't heard, they're discredited. Today's digital world has elevated this control to new heights. Algorithms shape what you see, what you hear, and what you're allowed to feel. Social media platforms that promise connection have become sophisticated engines of conformity, rewarding the safe, the popular, the shallow. Those who speak too boldly, too darkly, too freely, find themselves shadow banned, censored, or digitally erased. Look closer, and you'll see it everywhere. Cancel culture doesn't care about accountability. It's about fear. It's about silencing the unpredictable, making examples of those who refuse to kneel. It's public execution by 1,000 moral daggers, designed not just to punish the individual, but to send a clear message to everyone watching. This is what happens to people who step out of line. But it goes deeper than that. Modern propaganda doesn't need grand speeches or visible dictators. It works through distraction, through engineered outrage, through meaningless entertainment designed to keep you emotionally exhausted and intellectually numb. It turns people into relentless consumers of content, of controversy, of shallow validation. It sells rebellion in the form of slogans, while ensuring no real threat to the structure ever survives. Even those who appear to win within this system are rarely free. Influencers, celebrities, public figures, they live in invisible prisons of image management, terrified of saying the wrong thing, of alienating their audience, of becoming irrelevant. They aren't rewarded for truth. They're rewarded for staying just provocative enough to keep attention, but never so honest they risk exile. This is psychological warfare at its most sophisticated. A society where mass manipulation no longer needs chains or firing squads. All it takes is a culture obsessed with optics, a digital landscape where reputation is currency, and a population so dependent on external approval, they'll voluntarily police themselves. This is why the terrifyingly free mind is the ultimate threat, not because it seeks destruction for its own sake, but because it lives by a law higher than social approval, because it sees through the illusion and refuses to play its part. And in a world built on fragile narratives, nothing is more dangerous than a person who no longer believes them. What makes a mind truly unsettling isn't its intelligence or charm. It's the presence of traits most people have spent their entire lives avoiding. Traits that expose the fragile scaffolding of borrowed beliefs, inherited fears, and socially programmed instincts. When someone embodies these qualities, it creates an invisible tension, a primal discomfort, because deep down, everyone recognizes what it means. Here stands a person no longer bound by the laws that keep others small. The first and most disruptive trait is radical self-reliance. A terrifyingly strong mind does not wait for permission. It does not outsource its values, its meaning, or its confidence to anyone else. It draws strength from itself, even if no one validates it. This unnerves people because it reveals how much of their identity is built on external approval. Most people can only feel good when others agree with them. The person who doesn't need that makes them question their own foundation. Next comes brutal honesty, not the performative kind dressed up as virtue signaling, but the kind that speaks uncomfortable truths without apology. This isn't recklessness, it's clarity. It's the ability to say what everyone else is too afraid to admit. In every era, this trait has provoked hatred, not because it's wrong, but because it shines a light on the lies people cling to for safety. Then, emotional detachment from approval. A truly powerful mind understands that to belong is to be controlled. Approval is a currency systems use to train behavior. Those who need it are easily manipulated. Those who don't can no longer be tamed. And this creates terror in the collective psyche. Because when someone stops playing the approval game, they become unpredictable. And unpredictability is a primal threat to any social group. Another unsettling trait is curiosity about darkness. While most avoid difficult topics, uncomfortable ideas in their own shadow, the terrifying mind moves toward it. Not out of morbidity, but because it understands that wisdom lives in the places society tells you to fear. This is the person who questions why things are sacred, who asks what lies beneath the surface, who studies the history no one once remembered. In doing so, they become aware of forces others can't see, and that makes them dangerous. Finally, there's resilience in isolation. The herd survives together. The terrifying mind survives alone. It endures being misunderstood, vilified, and abandoned because it no longer depends on the crowd for meaning. This unnerves others because it reminds them of a terrible truth. The deepest battles in life are fought alone, and most people are unprepared for that. Think about yourself for a moment. How many of these traits do you possess? Which ones are you too afraid to embrace? Because in every society and every tribe, these qualities have separated the predators from the prey, the rulers from the ruled, the architects of reality from those living inside someone else's design. Human beings are hardwired to seek safety. From the earliest tribes to modern cities, survival depended on staying close to the herd. Those who strayed too far risked starvation, exile, and death. And though the world has changed, the instinct remains. People cling to conformity not because it makes them happy, but because it makes them feel safe. At the heart of this resistance lies the fear of loneliness, the terror of walking a road where no one will follow, of making choices others won't understand, of waking up one day and realizing you no longer belong to the world you once knew. Most will trade their integrity, their potential, even their identity, just to avoid that feeling. Then there's the fear of death, not just the physical kind, but the death of identity, of reputation, of everything familiar. To build a terrifyingly free mind, you have to be willing to destroy the person you were taught to be. Nietzsche understood this better than anyone. He spoke of the last man, a creature of comfort, pleasure, and shallow distractions, a person who avoids danger, confrontation, and depth in exchange for safety. The last man doesn't chase meaning, he chases convenience, and he makes up the vast majority of modern humanity. But here's the thing. It's okay not to want this path. It's okay to choose comfort, to live quietly, to avoid the weight of carrying a mind that no one else understands. Not every soul is meant to walk through fire. This isn't about arrogance or elitism. It's about choice and understanding the price. Because this road comes with a cost. You will lose friends, you will unsettle family, you will be misunderstood, resented, and sometimes hated. The world will punish you for the clarity you possess. It always has. But it's this very difficulty that makes the terrifying mind so rare and so powerful. The path is open to anyone, but few will take it. And that's precisely why it matters. You'll make enemies, not because you sought conflict, but because a mind no longer bound by the rules is a threat to every person who built their identity on those rules. You won't need to attack them. Your existence will be attack enough. And yes, you'll be misunderstood. People will twist your words, mislabel your intentions, assign motives to you you've never held, because the herd can't comprehend someone who doesn't need its validation. To them, independence isn't a virtue, it's a warning sign. But what do you gain in return? You gain something no one can fake. You become immune to manipulation. When the approval of others means nothing, when public shaming no longer has teeth, you can't be controlled by social games. You see through the currency of popularity, the empty rituals of status, the manufactured dramas of distraction. You'll stop fearing petty consequences. Fear of rejection, of isolation, of being misunderstood. These things lose their power over you, not because you pretend they don't hurt, but because you learn they don't matter. The only thing that matters is the integrity of your own mind. So now you're left with a choice. It's not about good or bad, right or wrong. It's about what you value more, the comfort of belonging or the terror of freedom, safety or sovereignty. You can cling to the herd, reciting the words they've given you, chasing the prizes they permit you to win. Or you can burn it all down. The borrowed beliefs, the empty approvals, the inherited fears, and become something else entirely. But know this, the path is narrow, and it comes with a cost. Most people will never pay it. Most people will never even admit the price exists. And so I leave you with a question, one you'll either dismiss with a nervous laugh or carry with you like a splinter in the mind. What would you become if you feared nothing and owed nothing to anyone? That's where it begins. A mind that bends to no one becomes a force everyone fears. Build it, and the world will either follow you or fall away. If that hit something deep, subscribe for more brutal truths. Like if you felt the shift, drop a comment with the one idea you'll carry forward. Your mind is your weapon. Sharpen it here.